when you open the door for somebody else.
Welcome back to the vaccine conversation with a semi-tired Melissa and a super energized Dr. Bob.
I know that is so funny. I'm just like beaming and I'm all energetic and you're just like you're sit up, Melissa.
I
Try
can't.
sitting up.
I don't want
like
to. It's going to require too much energy. And I am drinking bone broth, everyone. I'm doing bone broth the entire day today.
Wow.
I'm going to do a bone broth little fast.
Could you imagine me without food in a day?
You should try it. You don't actually know because you never give yourself that chance.
I don't know.
I'm going to start doing, you know why? Let me tell you why I'm doing bone broth. Well, one, of course, we know that there are benefits to it. And can you believe, like anything else, now there's like the camp that goes, oh, bone broth isn't so good. This is what happens is you get these like trends that come out and then people that argue the trends. And, you know,
that's the soda companies are coming out arguing
probably
the trend.
Right. Yeah. So I am sipping this bone broth because I'm getting a little too fluffy, everyone. I just want to acknowledge that in the last 2 months, I'm noticing that there's some advocacy eating happening. And this is what happens. Yeah. And I'm not even eating bad things, except there are times where I'm like, I deserve a gelato this weekend for all the work I've put in.
That's the Italian in you.
But that could be like twice a month. Okay. Yeah. Like I don't really do regular sugar that often. But I realize it's not really the food I'm eating. It's the fact that I'm not sleeping as much, which affects your stress hormone levels. And because I'm stressed during the day, a lot of sitting at the computer, not a lot of getting out and being active, along with not getting great sleep. And I'm super dehydrated because I'm not drinking water because I'm literally at the computer all the time. So anyway, the fluff is minimal for somebody else to notice, but I notice the fluff. Yeah. And so I'm on an anti-fluff campaign right now. And so
I could use that, honey, because I've put on a little bit because I too stopped exercising a few weeks ago when this hit, because I thought every hour I'm exercising is an hour I'm not sending out advocacy messages to my patients and not working on something we're doing. And I guess I don't know we never know when we're going to end up airing these episodes, but I guess if you guys just want like a time reference, this is the Saturday. What is it? April 27 or something. It's basically the Saturday after the first Senate Health Committee hearing, up in Sacramento. So I'm super drained and we're both drained, but anyway, so that's
exercise is dangerous. This is why I don't do it. It's risky for your health, you guys. That's how
I'm going to take Peter Hotez's advice and stop exercising
Just
completely.
Be a junk food addict and then claim you're the expert
but
on
I
health.
totally decided yesterday I need to get back on there because, my pants are tight again. That's how I can tell. I don't see it in the mirror.
Well, I don't have a scale. I don't care about that.
Right, yeah, and I stopped that. But for me, that's my pants.
But you can tell how things fit and how they look. And when I don't know, when things just start to feel softer, it's like, okay, maybe I need to be a little more. Unfortunately, my genetics lend themselves to ones that I have to be really on top of it to sort of maintain optimum body fat percentage. If I were to really want to be super lean, I would have to be consistently working out with a high intense cardio on a regular basis, in addition to completely watching my
and then that level is not necessary or important to you.
It's not sustainable. I mean, I don't have that kind of time. I don't have that kind of me time, I should say it that way, because the only free time I have would be about an hour and a half during nap, and then nighttime, which is 8 o'clock and after. I don't like working out at night because it revs me up, and then I need to go wind myself back down. So for me, it doesn't work, and I can't get up at 5 a.m. to work out and sustain energy with my kids. So I'm just in a phase of my life where I am more exhausted already. So I know that working out I used to be a personal trainer. So trust me, I know what should be done. I just honestly don't have the energy to do it. And I know that working out gives you the energy, and it's just, so I get it.
I'm laughing because we're going to get reviews about, how can you not be exercising, Melissa? You totally have to
I should say I'm active. I mean, I'm physically active. We go on long walks and nature walks.
You post on Facebook a lot about it. You guys are outdoors a lot.
Yeah, we're outdoors, and we don't eat very poorly. So that's the benefit of not working out a lot, is at least we know we can control our diet, and we know the diet is about 70% of that anyway. So activity is great, and I should probably do it as more of a stress releaser than anything. And I just wish I could carve that kind of time out for myself. But for today, it's going to be bone broth.
Okay, right.
But we were continuing on from an episode we just had that kind of talks about reviews and the way we look at people and attack people that have opposing opinions, and how we look at them and tend to attack them for who they are, not so much what they're saying. And I'm all about content. So go back and check that episode out if that is something that you find interesting. I think it was interesting, an interesting episode. And this episode, we want to talk about labels. Labels, the labels that we are given as advocates for either vaccine safety, for informed consent, health choice, medical freedom,
transparency in medical research,
parental rights. Anybody who focuses on these things as it relates to the issue of vaccines, instant label. And that label is, you are anti-vaccine. You are an anti-vaxxer.
Right.
They use that in every single article that is ever written on this issue, at least once. They are now trying to shift that label to vaccine hesitant, is what we see a lot.
That's the medical term.
Yes, the medical term.
That is the medical term. Yeah.
But everybody else is still throwing around anti-vaxxers. And
they're not going to, I don't think the media is going to shift it to vaccine hesitant, because that doesn't sound bad enough.
It's too favorable.
Right. Because I'll tell you why. If someone's reading an article about parents who are vaccine hesitant, that reader is going to say, wait a minute, why are they vaccine hesitant? Well, what is it about vaccines that makes them hesitate? Maybe I should start reading. No, total PR. You instead label them anti-something so that the reader automatically does not want to become part of that group. I don't want to be anti-anything.
Well, that's because, but it's not even just it's be a something. They don't want to be a thing.
Right.
So, so it's not just a characteristic about your desire to question things, which is just a characteristic about you. It's a thing. It's a person. It's a who you are.
Right.
Nobody wants to be that thing. That thing is very negative, and every time somebody brings up that thing, it is a very negative connotation. I don't want to be associated with that thing. I mean, you're even guilty of this. How many times have you felt the need to say, I'm not anti-vaccine?
Right.
Or, well, I mean, I'm not, there's a need to do that somehow because we are so, anxious to defeat that label and for what it means. Yeah,
you're right. You challenged me that on the other day. We were just having a phone conversation about it. And I'm like, we're talking about, how am I going to present this? And you're right. I said, well, how about I say, I'm not anti-vaccine. I give vaccines to my patients in the office every day. I've vaccinated my children. I gave one of my kids a vaccine, last year. Two of my kids a vaccine last year. And I gave one of my kids a vaccine series 3 years ago. And, vaccines needed for employment and stuff. So I'm clearly not anti-vaccine. And you kind of challenged me, like, why do I feel the need to kind of justify that or position myself that way? And I'm not sure why, because I just think my impression is it makes the listener think better of me or accept me more or think of me as more, objective. And I guess I don't want to be looked at as anti-vaccine, but I guess why do I need to justify it as sort of like saying all the pro-vaccine things to kind of balance it? Why can't I just be...
Please accept me if I say this. Because the truth is, you don't want to be looked at as anti-vaccine because you're not anti-vaccine.
Right.
So that's the reality of you, is that is not
but
who
why
you are.
But it's interesting. Why do I have to say it?
Why do you have to say it? And it's not just you. It's a lot of people in this movement feel the need to say that. But what I would challenge in this argument is, by us doing that, we are basically complicit that labeling people is okay, and we don't want to be associated with that label. So I feel like we're almost throwing our own people in this movement under the bus by saying, oh God, I'm not like that. Because listen, that label was not from us. That label was given to us from people who do not like the fact that this movement exists. So let's discuss this label.
Right. Well, but I just want to say there are people who are very proudly anti-vaccine as a label. Like you look on Facebook, that's actually their Facebook picture. They have pins, anti-vaccine and proud, and
or against vaccine, like they don't vaccinate.
Right, healthy, unvaccinated family, or I forget what I forget what but I see them. I'm like,
I'm an abolitionist. Even?
Yeah, vaccine abolitionist, and I'm like, good for you for standing up for that, and accepting it, being proud about it, Anyway, I just
want to clarify that and we said this a long time ago with Immunity Education Group. So if you guys haven't gone to our website, this feels so weird. We haven't been able to mention this a lot in our regular life because we're doing a lot of stuff involved with politics, and we have an educational nonprofit that is not allowed to be associated with that, and we're not utilizing that nonprofit for our advocacy as individuals against the kind of mandates that we're seeing in California right now. But we have a nonprofit called Immunity Education Group. And check out the website, immunityed.org or immunityeducationgroup.org. And one of the first things we used to say on our one-pagers was asking questions doesn't make you anti-vaccine. Mm-hmm. And so the reason I want to clarify, there may be people in our movement that are proud to say that they are against vaccines entirely.
Right.
But the label of anti-vaccine is given to us in a derogatory way as a movement, as anybody who questions something. So while there may be some people in this movement that are actually anti-vaccine in their own words, everyone in this movement is not that. And so what they're doing is they're making this very broad generalization about who we are as people. And it's inaccurate to utilize that label. So you will never catch me in any public conversation saying, hey, listen, I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm just advocating for this. Because one, why should I feel the need to do that? Why should you have to tell people that you gave your sons vaccines in order to travel recently? That's private medical information. Do people really need to know that? Does that somehow make you a better person because you've done that? I mean, the reality is you've researched your butt off over the last several years to understand why you come to a position of being against mandates and being pro-informed consent. Right. You do not owe anybody an explanation for what you do and don't do, what you believe and don't believe. You are fighting against mandates. What are you scrolling?
So I'm trying to get down to your truth focus.
Oh my God, stop
for the next episode. I'll turn
it
off.
Jeez, so distracted.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, you're screen free, Dr. Bob. We're going to make
I
you
am now screen free. Yes, exactly.
Do what I do with my children. Jeez. So I think that I've had people message me and talk about this labeling and the purpose of labeling and who's doing it and what we need to do to really fight it. Because the truth is if we keep saying, I'm not anti-vaccine. What do you want?
Right. Sorry.
If we keep saying, I'm not anti-vaccine, as in, please take me seriously, then we are literally joining in the acceptability of the fact that labeling somebody is okay, as if it's okay to label those people that, but don't label me that. And in reality, the label should be gone. I'm not anything. If you want to label me something, I'm against mandates, and I will be anti-mandate my whole life. Like I will proudly claim that. That does not mean anything as it relates to what I do and don't do with my children, what I have and have not done with my children, and what my belief system is as it relates to the vaccine program. So I think when we look at who gave us this label, you realize that this label has never been positive, right? This has never been positive. And like I told you several episodes ago, in England, when they first started the very first group that was a large group opposed to the smallpox vaccine, it was opposed to compulsory vaccinations. They were the anti-compulsory vaccine group.
Right.
It was never anti-vaccine as a negative label that they were claiming.
Right.
And so what that turned into over time, and especially over the last, 5 to 7 years, this has become a derogatory term that is used to lessen us and to take away from our arguments and to turn off open ears that could otherwise be coming across our information.
Right.
So first is, anti-vaxxer Dr. Bob Sears, right? Because that way, no matter what Dr. Bob Sears says, nobody is going to take it as a doctor's word because he's anti-vaxxer Dr. Bob Sears.
Right.
And they do that to literally dampen the message. They are trying, and they do it with people. They have all of us parents turning against each other. Oh, they're one of those anti-vax families. Those are anti-vaxxers. It becomes this like, ooh, oh, they're one of those. A very, it's segregation and it's discriminatory, and it's always been negative, and it will always be negative. So I think, I mean, what do you think? You tell me what you think about that.
Well, I kind of find it interesting for the public who maybe is not in this issue, or maybe they are on the pro mandate side, or just kind of the neutral vaccine side, which is what most people are. I want people to understand why a family would turn anti-vaccine. And kind of maybe try to get into the mind of that person who totally really actually does turn specifically anti-vaccine, like
an abolitionist anti-vaccine, you
mean? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not even a label, but why someone who maybe used to think vaccines are great, but now think vaccines are actually so bad, I need to actually try to help abolish them. Mm-hmm. Like someone who's on like really that end.
The extreme side.
Right, the extreme side. And I think you really have to look at them. Almost every single one of those families are ex-vaxxers, or people who used to vaccinate, people whose children had a severe vaccine injury. And I want to maybe take a second.
Sometimes devastating.
Right, sometimes
very
devastating. They might have actually had a child die the
Right.
night of vaccination. And 30 years later, you still see it in their eyes when they talk about it. They're living the rest of their life with that pain. So if you're a parent and that happens to you, and I think maybe we can all maybe have some more compassion for parents that this happens to, is if that happens to you, you're a listener right now. Think about maybe your oldest child. Think about that. If that happened to your oldest child, they're no longer here because of that. And it happened the night of vaccination, or it happened, you saw them terribly devastated right after vaccination. What would you do about that? Like, what would then become sort of your life's goal, your life's mission? Would you just, would you move on and not do anything about it? Would you maybe just go out and talk about, vaccines have risk. Everyone kind of needs to know vaccines have risk. Or would you have this personal responsibility, almost like your own personal mandate, that you feel now responsible to tell every single person you ever meet for the entire rest of your life, this happened to me, vaccines can do this. And you as someone who's completely naive to that possibility, no matter how rare the possibility is, you deserve to know that.
Exactly.
You completely deserve to know that. And maybe that person maybe does feel vaccines should be abolished because they do sometimes end someone's life.
Or at the very minimum, not mandatory.
Right, yeah, you're right. So I think that's the minimum. Everyone in that camp is going to say at least they should not be mandatory. So they would be part of the anti-compulsory vaccination league. But I mean, honestly, some of these people do feel completely compelled to say, I mean, if vaccines didn't exist, we might have some of this disease, but we wouldn't have fatal vaccine injuries. We wouldn't have severe permanent neurological injuries. We wouldn't have all these severe vaccine side effects. So I really feel it's my job to try to abolish vaccines because of that. And I can't fault them for that. I can't fault them for wanting to completely abolish the system. I don't agree with that they should be abolished, because I think everyone should have a choice.
Exactly.
And people should be able to choose to benefit from the protection that vaccines can give, which is on a whole variety of different levels. But I have never experienced that pain with any of my children. I don't feel like any of my kids have had a severe vaccine reaction. They've had vaccine reactions, but nothing severe. So I've never felt that personal pain. With my own kids, I don't have to live with that, and I hope I don't have to live with that with my grandchildren. But we need to. I think if you're in that objective group who just thinks vaccines are good and they're okay, and maybe they shouldn't be mandated, and you meet one of these parents who they're wearing an "I'm an anti-vaxxer" T-shirt. Or I'm against vaccine mandates, or I'm an ex-vaxxer. You know what? Ask them why. Ask them their story. Don't tiptoe around it, because I can guarantee you they're going to be very not happy. They're going to be very, upfront about telling you their story. And once you hear why they feel that way, you've made a personal connection, you can at least understand them as a person better than just seeing their T-shirt and walking the other way.
Or seeing their T-shirt, making a judgment about who they are and their inability to utilize science and intellectual data, and then walking away.
Right. So, just listen to their story, listen to what happened, and then that might create a relationship that you will find very positive and beneficial, and help you understand people better, be more accepting people. Anyway, so that's kind of,
that's one extreme.
About that a lot.
Right. And we've got that extreme, and we do need to have compassion for the people that have been in that experience. What do you expect them to do? What do you expect them to do? So that review that said to me, I listened to your story, I think you're too passionate. What would you expect? I'm sorry, you listened to my story and you still think I'm too passionate?
People say you're too anti-vaccine.
Yeah, this is where we got to that last episode about reviews. Me being passionate equates to somebody's potentially going on a rant, potentially being seen as too anti-vaccine. Now, what I want to know is, what does that mean, first of all? And again, I want to encourage our side of this to stop using that word, to stop using that label, and to not be complicit in going along with this narrative and holding people accountable for their use of a label that's negative, that is not something that everybody claims. And we shouldn't, not only do we not claiming it for its negative connotation, we're also not agreeing that it should be a negative thing. So, by us saying I'm not anti-vaccine is like assuming being anti-vaccine is a negative thing. It's not. It's a choice. It's an opinion. Like you're saying, there are reasons people come to those opinions. But the majority of people in America are, like I said before, selectively vaccinated. So they pick and choose things that they do and don't vaccinate for. They might have their kids up to date on the handful of things that they think are important, but maybe they skipped out on hepatitis B or chickenpox, or when their kid's a teen, they're like, HPV, no way, not happening. Or they don't do the flu shot, or they only do it some years, not every year. Everybody is selectively vaccinating for the most part. I mean, there are a handful of people that are just doing every dose all the time, and as adults are getting their boosters. I don't even know if those people really exist. But the majority of people are in the middle and have a more middle of the road viewpoint.
Right.
But the way that the media paints this is you are either diehard pro-vaccine, vaccines save lives and have been the greatest achievement in modern medicine, or you're an anti-vaxxer.
Right.
Like that is literally the only two places you can be. And we know that's not true because we know the majority is in the middle.
Right. Yeah, I'm completely convinced the majority is in the middle of all that. And I think we need to figure out a label for us that's pro something. I mean, we've come up with pro informed consent, or we are vaccine safety advocates. And it's interesting. I mean, you look at pro-life versus pro-choice arguments, both sides. They're both pro something. And neither side in the media has been successful in labeling the other side as anti something. Looking at abortion. I mean, you're not pro-abortion, you're pro-choice. And the pro-lifers don't call them pro-abortionists.
Or pro-death.
Right, pro-death, right. And the pro-choice people don't label the other side as anti-choice or I don't know what you say, and I think the reason is because I think largely nationwide it's probably about 50-50. Or is it 60-40? I don't know. It's close.
I'd say,
both sides is basically kind of our society, probably almost down the middle. A lot of people look at it as, Democrat versus Republican, from a political standpoint, but not completely, or right versus left. But I think the reason they're both pro is it's 50-50.
But also not just one side or the other. You might be pro-life and still think there are circumstances where whatever, or you could be pro-choice, but also think there should be limits. Like, again, there's a lot of middle ground even in something like that. Because there aren't too many people that are on the full-on extreme, like anytime, all the time, at any age, and then never, and that should never happen. Like, there are those people, but they're extreme also. Right. Most people are in the middle.
So I wonder it's because it's 50-50, and, the media hasn't tried to paint either side as anti something or change that label. to be anti something. And so I wonder if there's a way to kind of shift, the anti-vaccine mandate side to something that's pro. And, the media is not going to allow it because they're not objective.
We can.
But we can, we can.
And we're the ones having the conversation.
I just don't know what that label is.
But people as citizens.
I just don't know what that label should be. I think people have tried to come up with stuff.
But I think also the label has been around for a long time because it started with that anti-compulsory. So then the compulsory got cut off because that's long, and then it just became anti-vaccine. And this has been a label that has been utilized for so many decades now that it's one of those things that's really hard to shift.
Yeah.
But this is where the power of the people come in.
Okay.
We're going to do an entire episode on citizen advocacy as it relates to this issue for medical freedom and health choice and informed consent. We are the ones tasked with having the conversation at the grassroots ground up level, boots on the ground, as people say. We are the ones having the conversation. We can change the conversation that's being had. Mm-hmm. However, if we are not having the conversation, then the only conversation that's being had is theirs.
Right.
And their conversation makes us anti-vaccine.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And then we met someone at one of our town halls recently who said, her whole life she's been afraid to have the conversation and come out and talk about her child's vaccine injury. And I think her child was there with her. It was like a young adult child. It almost looked like, and she was almost like in tears. And I was very tired, very exhausted. I don't know if I displayed enough compassion towards her, but I think you did a little bit. And but I mean, she was just saying, finally I feel like I need to come out and have this conversation, tell people what happened, start talking about it, because I still I meet patients, I meet people all the time that still feel like they have to be silent about this, and if they dare say anything, they'll be ostracized. Yep. And that's hurt the pro-informed consent movement.
It has.
It's hurt us drastically, and
but it's going to change.
Yeah, exactly.
It's already changing, and it's starting this year. Right. There is going to be a serious change, and we are 100% supportive of helping that happen and empowering people. And if this podcast has been a way to give people that kind of empowerment, and I've personally on my own Facebook message by people who do not know me, have never met me, live in different countries and different states, have messaged me to say those exact words that you just said. I felt I was not confident enough to talk about this. I did not feel like I could find my voice about this. And now I can. Now I am able to tell my story. It's like, what is the most powerful thing you could hear from somebody is that.
Yes, yeah.
Is that. And the fact that it's not that you've done anything other than light the fire. You've given them the fire to say, all right, something has to change. And we'll talk more about this in our advocacy.
Yeah, and that's what you love, and that feeds you personally. And you've told me that. If you can get someone fired up to change that,
to take
part
action.
Of what they do. Yes, yeah. And if you went to one of our town halls,
we'll talk about this on our next one.
Unless you went to Culver City, where it was just me, and I was like, oh, I'm so not inspirational.
Come on, everyone.
I tried.
Were you like, Fredo? Like Braveheart? Were you like...
Yes, yeah. No, I was like, Wolverines. Name that movie.
Yeah, I can't.
Oh, no, it's Red Dawn. Sorry.
Okay.
Red Dawn. There was even a remake for you young ones. Anyway.
Yeah, no, not my thing.
Anyway, so I guess, I mean, I want to... Yeah, I want to wrap it, but I just want to say, maybe wrap it up, and that could be a segue to a future topic that I want to talk about is the reason why we need to speak out.
That's going to be on our advocacy one.
Okay.
Oh,
right.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, no. It's because the public is trying to basically turn us into a class of people, a certain people, who will have fewer rights, will be segregated from society, will be labeled. We'll be, I don't know what the word is, profiled. And I feel like that's where we all see it going in our society. And that's why we need to become a bigger people.
That's in the advocacy episode.
Right,
That's
okay.
exactly what we're going to be talking about. Shh.
Okay.
Don't listen to what he just said. In fact, rewind this and just turn it off right at that point. Just
if only there was a way to like edit things out so they wouldn't be on there, right? Yes. Okay, well, that is our next episode.
Well,
Awesome
thank you guys for listening to this conversation. And you know what? Weigh in on the Immunity Education Facebook page. What do you think this movement should be called?
Oh, yeah.
We want to know. What should it be called? We like to say pro-informed consent or anti-mandate, but if you are a pro-something, what realistically, let's not be silly here, like, because I've seen some silly ones. Realistically, what do you think this movement for medical freedom, medical choice, and informed choice as it relates to medical interventions, what do you think it should be called? When we air this episode, we will make a post on Immunity Education.
Or there's basically the pinned post on Immunity Education Facebook page where it's kind of our pinned home podcast announcement, and we could look there. But yeah, you're right. Maybe we do a separate post.
Our numbers are getting too high.
You're right. It should be a post. What should we be called?
And by the way, we're almost at 200,000 downloads.
Yeah.
Isn't that exciting? And that's all because of you guys. Thank you for spreading the word. Thank you for having this conversation with us.
Yep. See you guys next time.
We're gonna be the peace we wanna see in the world. Yeah, be the peace we wanna see in the world. Yeah, be the love we wanna see in the world. Be the joy we wanna see in the world. Be the change we wanna see in the world.
The information in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as medical advice. Always consult your healthcare professional for information on vaccines and infectious diseases.